So it's been a long time since I've talked about the My Hero Academia manga, and as promised, I finally caught up to the actual latest chapter. I believe it's 169. Now, a lot to talk about because since I last talked about the manga and what was going on, I believe we just had gotten the reveal that there was this whole thing of where you could lose your quirk, where people were making these bullets that if you get shot, you were temporarily losing them, and that there was basically a cure to the quirk, and it was like this Overhaul guy, and I was like, oh, who is he? And then I stopped talking about it for a while, but since then, so much insanity has gone down in the My Hero Academia manga. Has it been perfect? No, it hasn't been perfect, especially the latest few chapters, but there's definitely a couple of flaws here and there, but for the most part, just so insane. And I guess for starters, you know, let's throw a question out here, because we haven't talked about My Hero's manga in a while. We've talked about the anime when season 2 was airing, but again, the manga, different story, you know what I'm saying? So again, for starters, I want to ask, which of the villains at this point, up until this chapter, do you think were the best or the biggest or had the biggest impact of everything? And I mean, you know, we've had some decent villains up until this point, some awesome villains at that. I don't even want to just say decent. I feel as though decent is discrediting them in a way, because they're pretty freaking awesome. So for starters, we have Shigaraki. Well, he's probably one of, honestly, the least biggest threats up until this point anyway, because he's essentially the Deku of villains. He's trying really hard to come up there as a bad guy, but he's just such a small time guy, and he can't really establish his name just yet, and he's essentially, again, the shonen hero of the villain side of it, you know what I mean, if that makes any sense at all. Or he's kind of like, you know, the main character villain of his side, so to speak. So he hasn't made much of an impact. But then you had the hero killer Stain. Very, very huge impact. Huge impact. Changed the series, his philosophy, how many villains were inspired by him. Just so many different things that he did. Then, of course, we had the legendary All for One. All for One, absolutely insane, amazing villain. I felt as though that was the turning point, almost to a certain degree, potentially even the Marine Ford of My Hero Academia. And what I mean by Marine Ford, again, with all due respect to every other arc in One Piece, I felt as though that was the arc that really put One Piece on the map, even in the West, when a lot of people in the West were catching up to the One Piece Whitebeard War or whatever, Marine Ford. That's when everybody was word of mouth spreading like, yo, One Piece is amazing, and it got really popular. I feel as though with My Hero, again, potentially, it could be the All for One arc, because it was just so insane what happened with All Might. It just absolutely amazing. And then this latest arc, Overhaul, holy shit. To give you an idea, a little bit of a synopsis, and again, this is for people that have been reading the manga, and I'm going to be talking about spoilers, so if you don't want to hear about spoilers, then don't go in here, because this will eventually be in the anime. But personally, I love the manga too, so yeah, Overhaul essentially is a villain that is trying to reestablish and revive the Mafia. He wants to bring the Mafia back to its incredible prominence that it once had, and make it, you know, just a very feared name and on top of society. You know, the Mafia at one given time was this big deal that controlled everything, and as the times have gone on, especially even the My Hero manga, whatever, they're really not as powerful as they used to be. They're in the slums at this point. The guy that was originally in charge is old and sick and can't really do anything, and I think he might have even passed away at this point. Honestly, I used to get confused when I was reading this in the timelines, especially because there was a major gap since the last time I read all those chapters up until where I'm at now, because I read like 10 chapters and then took a long break. So again, I get fuddled up in the mind with whether or not Overhaul's leader passed away or not. But he even had different ideals. He thought these ideas that Overhaul had, he looked at them as like, no bro, like what? We're not doing that, you know what I'm saying? Because he was essentially a more decent person, and Overhaul just wanted to go crazy and start war and wreak havoc and chaos and everything. Overhaul just wanted to do something totally separate from what the original leader was trying to do, which is, you know, yeah, he probably had a lot of bad shit happening and whatever, but he wasn't really trying to make this big boom or anything like that with the Mafia. But Overhaul, again, that's his objective, and he's using this little girl that throughout the arc he calls his daughter, named Eri, I believe it's Eri, it's E-R-I, Eri, basically to accomplish this goal, because we find out during the arc that Eri is essentially a quirk user, of course, like, you know, everybody, but her quirk is so rare, and that's why she's very sought after, because her quirk essentially is so ridiculously powerful of what it can do. It can rewind the body, or pretty much, I think, anything, but essentially the body as well, or that's the main thing that she specializes in. It could rewind it back to anything, so essentially, it could bring bring you back to possibly the monkey age, if, you know, the whole theory of evolution is valid or whatever. It could do that. It could do anything pretty much as far as reversing the body. It could reverse the quirk out of you, so essentially you won't even have a quirk no more, and he's trying to use that to black market, you know, overprice them, have the villains get the serum that'll basically make people lose quirks, have the heroes get the antidote to get their quirks back, you know, make a massive fortune. And honestly, I felt as though Overhaul, he had a really solid objective. He was definitely looking at it from many different perspectives. He also thought of not making the same mistakes that some people made in the past as well. I thought that was really interesting as well. Like, overall, he was really doing his thing. I mean, even in, you know, the whole villain circuit, he even put Shigaraki and made Shigaraki have to give up some of his people to be a part of the Overhaul alliance, just because Shigaraki knew, I can't tangle with this guy right now. His quirk is too ridiculous, because his quirk was not necessarily the same, but somewhat similar, as it is explained in My Hero Academia regarding, you know, it's compared to Eri's quirk in a sense, and that's why he felt like he was so strong, because her quirk was very, you know, good in comparison, you know, being as good as his quirk, and that kind of made no sense, whatever. But yeah, his quirk, a very big deal as well, and that's how he was able to maneuver through things. Honestly, in comparison to some of the other villains that we had, again, Stain and All For One, I would say that this one kind of felt more, because again, it was a Yakuza arc. He wanted to bring, you know, this mafia back to prominence type of deal. Stain was about ideals and, like, you know, how you view society. All For One is kind of in the same vein as Stain, except he's just more so just trying to grab power and wants ultimately to get it all, and I guess at this point he's relying on Shigaraki to realize his goal of whatever the fuck he's trying to accomplish and shit like that. So it's interesting if you compare all three of them. I think this is one of those hard ones where it's like, I really fanboy over All For One, but then at the same time comparing it to the Hero Killer arc, the Hero Killer had some pretty good action and also had some great ideology in it that was pushing forth this villain. I'd argue how Stain went down, you know, if I really went into a deep dive of the content at hand, he did lose in a way to some kids. Imagine Orochimaru went down against some kids, right? And holy shit, that's probably gonna bring up a ton of discussion and people going crazy or whatever, but I just gotta call it as I see it. Those were the flaws with that. With Overhaul, I think he got lucky in a sense because of who he faced, and I think a lot of these villains, but especially these smaller time ones, because Overhaul, while he was trying to do big things, he was a better version, in my opinion, of like Shigaraki. I felt as though like Stain was a vet, you know, he's been around for a while. Motherfucker looked like a original design of the Ninja Turtles type of shit, you know what I'm saying? And then All For One was a genius, you know, a mastermind, and just this powerful motherfucker. Overhaul, he's pretty damn strong, but he wasn't absolutely massively strong. He used a lot of his connections and everything that he had with the mafia to advance him even further, and played the mafioso boss type of deal pretty well. Let's talk a little bit about Deku and what he did in this arc, his involvement. I think a lot of things that people want to talk about, especially because I know there was a huge hype around it, was the 20% and the 100% deal of basically Deku saying that he realizes, and it, you know, comes after this arc, this is the conclusion he came to as far as his powers go and as far as his character development goes, is that he realizes he needs to do not, you know, a 20% or 30%. He needs to get to 100%. He needs to be able to use that power and not break down, because as he was fighting in the Overhaul arc and really trying to go in and kicking some ass because he really went in, he still realized, like, is not enough, and I can't really use that type of power right now. And on top of it all, he had that little girl on his back while he was trying to do things and stuff. So Deku, in the end of this arc, definitely got some development and realized, like, I can't pussyfoot around. I can't keep on saying, oh, I'm gonna go up 5%, I'm gonna go up 10%. If these villains are coming my way, and the longer I wait, the closer they're getting here, I have to be ready for them. I need to get to 100%, which could be a huge, not necessarily skip, but who knows. And then going into a little bit of Shigaraki and his crew and what they tried to accomplish in this arc. Again, going into Toga, and I forget the other dude's name, but he kind of reminds me of like Deadpool in a way, and their involvement in this, they played their role really well. They showed how loyal they are to Shigaraki, and it really delved into their character and who they are, and they're truly loyal. They really don't care. They're gonna do whatever it takes to be in Shigaraki's good graces and continue on with their plans, because they believe in him. They look at him as he could be something great. So I think that's great and a prerequisite to some of the future events of what's going going to happen with those characters as they continue to follow Shigaraki to hell and beyond, because they're going into this group that they don't even want to be a part of just for him. They're gonna go the long way for him, you know what I'm saying? They're gonna overhaul it, so to speak. Pun intended, by the way. Yes, indeed. Let's talk about Mirio. Very, very huge part for this character. The dude from the big three in My Hero Academia, the main guy, the Superman-esque, so to speak, of this whole thing. It definitely showcased Mirio essentially always is going to bring into your head, what if? What if Mirio got this power instead of Deku? Essentially, what if Deku never met All Might is who Mirio essentially is and what it all reminds me of, because Mirio was supposed to be the guy that got One for All. He was supposed to get the one passed down from All Might. It was supposed to happen, and then because of everything that happened in the beginning of the series, Deku wound up getting it, and Mirio, continued to own his own powers and eventually became as great as he is in this whole thing. I will say, I'm still to this day not the biggest fan of his character design. It does remind me of some classic golden age comic book stuff, so to speak, and I've even seen one of the covers that is awesome where you see Mirio holding Eri. He's holding her in his arms, and it reminds me of like Death in the Family, where the Joker killed Robin in that series, Jason Todd, I believe. That kind of reminds me of that, or even the Death of Superman. It reminded me of both, and it's like, holy shit. Mirio, everything about him, honestly, he really was a star in this little arc. I did not expect for him to be a star. I did not expect to like him. Honestly, at first, I did not like him. It took a long time for me to really get into Mirio and truly see that he is essentially a little All Might. He is more All Might right now than Deku is. He's straight up, well, not right now because of what happened to him losing his powers, but he is damn near what All Might was as a young child if he had that same personality or something like that. That's what I feel with Mirio, and it is interesting. You take the beginning of the series away, Deku didn't, decide to become a superhero. Mirio would have had those powers, and who knows how all of this Overhaul event would have turned out in the end. So there's always going to be that what if scenario. I wonder, really, I mean, at the end of the day, Mirio, he's such a good person that he doesn't have any resentment towards Deku. Me, personally, I'm not that good of a person. I would resent the fuck out of Deku. Like, give me that quirk, bro. Like, go get your own, son. I want that quirk. So it's going to be interesting. I'm curious, because essentially to me, and I'm going to be honest with you, I don't care if anybody takes it personal. These are the way I compare things. Mirio right now is the Rock Lee of My Hero Academia after the Gaara fight. And what I mean by that, he's the guy that had so much potential, was really awesome, had a great fight, the fight against Overhaul with Mirio, and ultimately after that is left crippled because he doesn't have a quirk. How's he going to do things? He got to be basically a Batman at this point of My Hero Academia. So it's going to be interesting to see how that goes. But yeah, Mirio right now is Rock Lee after the Gaara fight. He's going to continue to try to be a superhero, but it'll be a while. Who knows? Maybe he'll be able to do things and eventually he'll get his quirk back, but not even need it, or might get it offered and might not want it, depending on if Eri is able to master that power enough to reverse back to, hey, give him his fucking powers back. They were pretty cool. It was like some Obito shit. So Mirio, definitely a star of this. Sad to see what happened, but it's great that it's showcased in My Hero Academia, a series that a lot of people have been saying it plays it very safe between what happened to him and definitely showcase that there are consequences. This is a dangerous world. It's not all fun and games. I mean, Stain didn't show you that, and what happened to All Might didn't show you that. Well, this definitely did. We got a L, a body, and at the same time a major L with losing your powers for life. And I guess a segue great right there into Night Eye. I gotta be honest with you, I did not expect at the end to feel this way regarding Night Eye and what happened with him. Now, honestly, I gotta keep it real. Like, again, I don't necessarily, in the end, it wasn't that I was a Night Eye fan. I was more just saddened of the situation at hand, his relationship with All Might, his relationship with Mirio, on top of, hey, I'm sad about what happened to Mirio. Everything combined is what really made it impactful with Night Eye, because again, I wasn't the biggest Night Eye fan. He was cool, his power was dope to be able to see the future essentially, but crazy. I think the biggest thing about him, and I'm glad they somewhat resolved certain aspects, didn't resolve everything. He didn't completely address, hey, All Might, this about your death. So that kind of bothered me in a way in regards to Night Eye. You should have fucking said that. Like, your last words should have been that, but he didn't. But Night Eye, in the end, that was one of the craziest things about this arc. I don't want to say the best thing because I don't want to sound bloodthirsty, but it's showcased yet again. People are going to die. These villains aren't no joke. They're coming for lives. They're not playing around. This isn't a game. So really amazing, and adding something in My Hero Academia that previously really wasn't there, and that's a very big death. the former sidekick to the main, mascot of this whole series, All Might, Night Eye, R.I.P. In the end, the whole thing was tragic, and I was like, great stuff. This arc delivered just so much with, again, these were all newer characters. Night Eye is a fairly new character, likewise with Mirio, and they turned out to be freaking amazing in the end. Like, holy shit, how do you go on from this? You don't got a quirk and your mentor is dead. The fuck? Overall, honestly, the My Hero Academia manga up until this point has once again been phenomenal. I don't want to harp on it, but the later couple chapters with Aoyama, and as well chapter 169 with the concert and the play and all that stuff, I don't really care about the play and stuff. The Aoyama stuff, there was some good development there of basically saying, hey, I felt the same way you did with him and Deku and stuff. It's really weirding me out because there was something that was written in French about something about trusting people regarding what Aoyama wrote with his belts from his power or whatever. I'm not sure if that's a hint that Aoyama is a part of it. Is Aoyama the actual traitor? Because it was that chapter that I thought it was straight up Aoyama, but then they turned it into like he's a friend to Deku, and I'm kind of a little bit confused in that regard as far as what Aoyama's stance is. Is he's the My Hero Academia, UA traitor, or what's going on with that? So we'll talk about that in another video or whatever. But honestly, again, the My Hero Academia manga has been elevating. It's honestly elevated. It brought in new characters, made them great. It continued to advance the old characters. I think in the next arc, there's going to be a lot more Bakugo and Todoroki, because there was definitely more, I don't want to say a lack of, but definitely a more lack of those characters. Not necessarily excited too much about Gran Torino, but then again, it was an interesting chapter that he was involved in, where Shigaraki essentially, or I don't know if it was in the same chapter, but it was around the same events, because Shigaraki eventually got Overhaul's body. So in the end, Shigaraki won. Again, your overall thoughts on the My Hero Academia manga. Overhaul, where does he stand in the villain tier against Stain and All for One? Is he the best, the worst, in the middle? Your thoughts on this arc as a whole, and Deku's powers, Eddie's powers, everything that happened, Mirio, Night Eye, All Might, when is he going to die? Crazy shit. But that's all I have for this one. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. If you liked anything I had to say or enjoyed the video, drop me a like. I'd greatly appreciate it. And if you want more from me, make sure to subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and stalk my Facebook to get more when the video ends. I'm ForneverWorld, and as always, people, have an awesome day. And remember the golden rule: anime and manga for life, boy. Pow. Have an awesome day.